Yeah, why do you think it's the last like 2 years in particular that have been really like skateboarder influence video games have been making a comeback? Like, is it just? Do you think it's just timing? Do you think it was just right place, right time? Do you think it was just the lag, the many years of lack of skateboarding games?
Well, part of it is that there is a bit of a cultural resurgence of skateboarding in general, like skate culture has come back. Ska never really died, but a lot of people thought it did, and now it's becoming clear that ska is back, and ska was kind of intrinsically tied to skateboarding in terms of again, you go back to Tony Hawk 1, and a lot of people's idea of skate culture comes from Tony Hawk 1 because of the music, and that music kind of became skate culture, and that built for like 2 or 3 decades or whatever. So they're kind of intertwined. So that's all happening in the background. And then you've got Skater XL, which came out and did shitloads of sales. Session, I believe, was actually Kickstarted or whatever before Skater XL was a thing. And that showed initial interest because their Kickstarter actually went pretty well. The actual game, I don't know of how well it's gelled, but like they were very much the start of this. And then Skatebird comes out, and we're this weird little Tony Hawkish kind of game, and that does well, or at least seems to have done well. We'll see when it launches. But at least at the time, it gained buzz. So that was kind of the trinity of what skate games used to be, and this is now that kind of same thing rebooted. So if you're a marketing type or you're a big business type and you're trying to sell a new game to people, you need something to point at. You need to be able to say, look, here's the audience we're going to sell to and say it's doing well right now, so clearly people will buy our game too. Or here's the culture that we're going to target because we need someone to market to, and look at how big this culture has gotten. And between skate culture coming back, ska music coming back, skate punk, whatever, the various musical genres surrounding skate coming back. And then you've got, this is clearly inspired by skate, this is clearly inspired by Tony Hawk, this is clearly inspired by other sim games coming back. Like, you have this nexus of things to suddenly just point to and say, we'll make money. And so I would imagine that finally let people pitch the larger budget projects they had been quietly wanting to do for a long time.
What would you say is the hardest part about making a skateboarding game that's in vein of Tony Hawk? Is it the physics, making everything feel good when you're moving and doing tricks, or what is like the most important thing or the most difficult thing to work on in the game to make it feel right?
So if you're making a traditional Tony Hawk game, like literally what they did, your character is going to be a pill shape. It like looks like a pill that's scraping its ass going around, and it kind of rotates with the board. But like there's no actual board physics. Whenever the board moves, it's just essentially another animation bone. So you end up with 3 million animated tricks, and the content base required for that is super high. So if you're doing it that way, that's the hard part. The way I did it is the skateboard is the only physically real thing in the entire game. The rest is fakery, trickery. So for me, the hardest part was getting the physics of the board to control tightly, to control well, to respond to controls well, without exploding because it's too tightly constrained a system, or being sloppy, or just making it look bad. Because again, once you've got a board that basically controls and moves around, now you have this board that's doing random kickflip motions and such, and you have to somehow mount a skater on top of it who then does stuff while the board is moving to make it look reasonably like skateboarding. Tony Hawk games solve this by it's just all one animation. So if you do a kickflip, you animate the whole thing together and you're done. What I'm doing, I have to kind of work backwards to figure out what the board is doing and then hint to the bird what animation they should be playing or how they should be moving in order to sell the motion of the board. And then there's a lot of involved stuff, and I use IK, inverse kinematics, to pin the bird's feet to the board, which is why when the board tilts, you get the nice leg movement, which is critical to making it all look right. But that means that whenever you're doing a kickflip, if I don't unpin the feet, they get tangled in the board and do this horrific twisting motion that would break a bird's legs. So making all of that work is basically the act of how you put a bird on top of the board is probably the hardest part, next to getting the controls right so that the whole thing feels tight and controllable without being explodey.
Did you also like go out and study like bird anatomy to see like how they moved and look at
Oh yeah.
pictures and videos and all that good stuff to make sure that they were accurate or as accurate as they could be.
Oh yeah, well I mean, we're making burbs, not birds, so accuracy doesn't have to be perfect. But yeah, there was a lot of back at the start of this, I didn't really know anything about birds, and had just moved out to the country and started feeding birds because hey, it's what one does in the wild. And they started showing up, and I got more and more into birds, and then there was the article on Audubon, and like now I'm like a birder somehow. I don't know. It's cool. I like birds. But yeah, there was a lot of watching them, seeing how they move. One of the key takeaways, should anyone else wish to ever make any bird game at all, is that birds don't have tween frames. Birds go from here to here. Like tween frames would imply you do this, or even you do this. Fast exit, slow entrance. But no, birds do hit. There's no tween. They move so fast from point A to point B that if you skip the intervening motions or in some way blend directly from point A to point B, you'll end up with something that is more convincingly bird-like than, other stuff. But that's not how animation systems or animators are typically trained to think. So there was a lot of early, like one of the funny things we started with was when I initially was working with Alex to get the initial bird animations correct, Alex would give me back this like gentle bobbing motion that was kind of doing this. And the first thing I did was multiply the speed by 5 so that they were doing this. But once you do that, it actually looks like a bird. Then it was showing Alex, look, this is what I had to do to your animation to make it look like a bird. So like speed up all your tweens by 10 times, and then we're almost there. And just kind of a lot of that. Then the other aspect that gets really challenging is because whenever you're doing a special trick in Tony Hawk, a lot of what sells a special trick as special is the animation. The fact that you're doing a dark slide versus a board slide isn't just that the board is flipped upside down. If you don't know enough about skateboarding to recognize that, you're not going to notice. What makes it cool is that when you're doing the dark slide, your character's doing a totally different animation. The silhouette's totally different. The movement is totally different. So the whole thing sells itself. Whenever you're dealing with a bird who doesn't really do that, like they have poses and they have silhouettes that they can hold, and that's about it. They don't like wave their arms slowly or it's just like they do the thing. So selling unique animations is still something we struggle with, but we're getting better at it.
What did having the game taking place with bird characters open up for you guys creatively? Like, is there a hawk named Anthony in your game? I mean, I think it just begs to be parodied.
There is a hawk named Anthony, yes. And you don't actually meet them in the main game. We're saving them as kind of a post-launch add-on content kind of character because they'll be in a separate area and it'll be really cool. And yeah, we'll talk about that later. You do meet someone related to them, though. And as far as bird physics being influencing anyway, part of it is we added air ollies. So you can ollie and then do an air jump, which is, double jump standard thing. But in a skate game, it turns out the double jumps are really cool and give you way more vertical maneuverability than you would normally have. Like in a Skater XL, especially, or Tony Hawk, which at least has some verticality. If you wanted to change levels, you needed to use a ramp transfer or you needed to use a boost ramp. And the boost ramps usually had like very, very, very statically placed, and they made the noise when you did the boost, and like they were aimed specifically to this one point. So it was really hard to create dynamic links between levels. Skateboard, on the other hand, we could just like jump like 10 times, or no, it's not 10 times, like 5 times your height. It's significant with the air ollie, which means that we can skip a lot of those transitional elements and do a lot of crazy stuff. Or like whenever we're doing whenever you're doing a ramp and you go up a ramp and you like the ramps are like this and you're going up and then you tend to go up and fall back down. This is vert space and this is, I consider it vert in game. Once you're in this space, normally in any other game, you would have to fall back down and that's about it. In Skatebird, you can actually air ollie out and go this way. So you can use a ramp and then you can go this way, which gives you, again, more transit. And that's just one of the many ways in which we can use birds to kind of change the game a lot. But also they're just fun and they cover for Skate games typically have low gravity, which feels weird if you're looking at humans, but with birds, you make them flap, and yeah, that just makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you know that you say it. I realize that, like, you know, skaters tend to fall much faster and harder in real life than they do in any of the
Oh yeah,
floaty, even the Tony Hawk games. You know, you're lighter.
quite a bit so. And the falls are way harder and way harsher.
Was the double jump always something that you originally thought about to put in your skate game, or was that something that came about because you were using birds specifically?
That came about because I was using birds specifically. Though I mean, the whole game came about because I was going to use birds specifically. There was never a version of Skatebird that was not going to be Skatebird. The whole thing came about because I was looking at a GIF. Well, partner showed me a GIF of actual birds skateboarding because at the time I liked birds, and here's a bird skateboarding, haha. And Kev, who is a Twitter friend, was passing around a really, really, really early rough prototype of, I have this physics-based skating thing. I don't know what to do with it. I didn't want to play with it. So it's like, oh my god, this plus this is it. And yeah.
That was the aha moment for you, yeah.
Oh yeah, that was the light bulb. But yeah, the air ollies were something I kind of played with the idea of early on, but I didn't actually get them into the game until a year ago. It was like pretty recent. It was towards the end.
Now, you guys are also coming out on multiple platforms like the Nintendo Switch. Are you guys doing that port yourself, or are you outsourcing that work?
No, that's Plastic Fern. We're collaborating with Plastic Fern Games. Jay Fernandez and his crew, they're awesome. They've done a really great job. And they are handling our Nintendo Switch port, our Xbox port, and they are also handling the Amazon Luna, which, to be fair, isn't that much of a port. It's just like sort of kind of the same. So I never know if you should think of it as a console or just like a store, or cloud gaming is weird.
Yeah, it's like Google
I mean,
Stadia, right? Like, is it just a PC port on a Google server? I guess there's some interface stuff you have to do to make it work.
yeah, I mean there is, and it's not nothing, but it's also like the cloud is just some guy's computer in Jed's basement. Like that's the cloud. There, it's just a computer in a basement. So it's basically the same as the PC build. Basically, all I'm saying is that they're doing all of these builds, and they've done a great job. And yeah, we could not have done this without them. The original plan was, oh yeah, I'll just do all the ports myself, and nah, fuck me, no, that would have been a bad idea.
So, like, just because I'm curious, can you talk about that process when, like, a studio, because it is your baby, right? It is your game, and like having that game, having someone else port it, is that like because you can't manage can't do everything, you know, because you want to do everything, but you can't. You want to do everything you can to make sure that the game ports well, but, you know, sometimes you just don't have the time or the resources, or it's just so different from the PC, because I know Switch is especially different because there's two modes.
The big thing with Switch is mostly performance, just getting the game to run well, which, I mean, you look at Skatebird and you might think it's relatively visually simple, and it sort of is in some ways, but it's definitely not in other ways. So yeah, Switch was a whole thing, which runs really well now, and I'm kind of impressed it does. It looks great too. And yeah, so a lot of porting houses, whenever you work with them, you're essentially throwing code over the wall, and that's it. And the project you get will often be questionable because you didn't really work very closely with them, and you don't know what they were doing, and then they just kind of treated you as one of like 3,000 games that you're working on, which is fine for a lot of games. If that's really truly all you want, that works really well if you've got a game that's super stable on desktop. It's been out for a while, and you go, let's put it on Wii U or whatever, and so you pass it over, and then they do the thing, and then magic appears. That's how which I think with Jones on Fire Wii U did that, and then Spartan Fists has a Switch port, which is pretty much the same thing we did. This time, though, we worked closely with Plastic Fern. We do not think of Plastic Fern as like in any way lesser or whatever. They're part of the team. Like Jay and Paul and everyone else, they're a part of the team. We work closely with them. I have been in a chat with them a lot for the last 6 months, I think. It's been a process. And yeah, we're working together to make something. This isn't it. Skatebird started as just me, and that's awesome, but it's not like just me anymore. We are way, way, way past that little tiny sandbox concept that maybe kind of sort of was just me, except also Alex did the bird and Nathan did the kick-ass music. Like even then it wasn't just me, but now especially it's bigger. Not like huge. We're still probably a team of under 10 for like core full-time staff, and most of them aren't full-time. Like Alex, bird artist, super critical, but also not full-time because they have other stuff they're doing. They just put in the time on the birds, and that's all we really need, and that works great. So yeah, like 10 folks about like that. More if you count. Yeah, I probably over 10 if you actually count full of plastic ferns. I think they've got 4 people over there working on us. Maybe like 12, but still like somewhere between 8 and 12 people. So still at most double, well, not double A, we're still tiny. Anyways, yeah, it's gotten a lot bigger, and we do not draw artificial lines between people. We try and work very closely with whoever we partner with, because I don't believe in minimizing a person's input in a project. Like, what you make together is much better than what you make alone.
That's a good tagline. You should put that on a t-shirt and sell it. And the last thing I want to ask is, when can people get their hands on Skatebird on these other platforms? You guys have any official release date yet?
Yeah, Skatebird is releasing on all platforms on August 12th, which is Switch and Xbox and Amazon Luna and Steam and itch.io. I think that's all of them. Pretty sure that's all of them. Sorry if I forgot someone.
Well, that's great. And where can they go to support your game and to find more information about it?
Well, a lot of you are probably watching this relating to Steam, so go check us out on Steam. We're up there, wishlist, etc. You can also, I don't know if you can find the storefront on Nintendo or Microsoft yet. They're kind of weird about when they actually go live. But anything else that you can go to Burb Rocks, like skate.burb.rocks. That's our website for this game. Find more information, etc., etc., etc. But again, I'm assuming most people go to Steam. So yeah.
So Steam wishlisted. Do it.
Basically, yeah. Please.